Bleh, bleh. Welcome back to Creature Madness with your host.
Me, Gus from Askewed Reviews. Now, if you don't know what Creature Madness is, let me explain. This was actually a creation by my friend Matthew over at Horror Madness, who decided to invite a few of his friends to come together and create a movie club of sorts. So, what we all do is we all watch the same creature feature film during a week, then each of us does our own review on that movie. Now, myself and a few of the other members are playing a little bit of catch up as we're trying to get back to the current week of the creature features that we've been watching, but I'm slowly but surely getting back to that point. Now, speaking of the other members of this group, besides myself and Matthew, there's also Ryan, Jen, Bambi, and Mariah, Ashley, and Karen. And for the week that I'm doing the review for, it was Matthew's choice to choose the film. And you may or may not have already figured it out, but he chose the 2006 film Black Sheep, directed and written by Jonathan King. This is not at all the Chris Farley movie, if that's what you were thinking. Now, if you just so happen to be one of my Askewed viewers, you might even notice that I've actually reviewed this film before, and it was for one of my trivia reviews. So, if after watching this episode of Creature Madness, if you'd like to know more about the trivia involved in this movie, you can look up that episode either on my YouTube or TikTok channels. So, let's get into the concept for this film. So, the movie starts off with a pair of brothers known as Henry and Angus Oldfield. Now, when they were young, Angus was a bit of a prankster, we'll just say that. And at one point, he ends up doing something absolutely horrific to his brother Henry that causes him to now be afraid of sheep forever. We then jump ahead to the both of them being in adulthood. Now, Henry is still absolutely afraid of sheep, but he hasn't been back to the family farm in years. But he is back to potentially sell his half of the ownership of the farm to his brother. Over the years, though, Angus has decided that with the sheep farm, he is trying to do something that no one else can do, and that's make the perfect sheep using science. So, of course, Angus looks to genetic engineering. But while doing so and trying to get that perfect sheep, there are, of course, some mistakes on the way. And one of those mistakes is going to be thrown out, but is mistakenly stolen by two activists, Experience and Grant. While they're trying to run off with this specimen, Grant ends up breaking the jar and freeing this mutated fetal sheep, which is now on the loose. The biggest issue here is that when this little mutated sheep finds other sheep, if it bites them, they then change into semi feral, semi zombified sheep that are now hungry for human flesh. So, will anyone be able to stop this army of bloodthirsty sheep? This was actually an extremely funny and very entertaining film that I thought had amazing practical effects. Here's something that I rarely ever do. I looked back at my previous review on this film and I gave this movie a 3 out of 5. I'm actually going to change my opinion and give this a 4 out of 5. If you'd like to watch it for yourselves, it's currently streaming for free on Tubi. Also, here's something interesting I just found out the other day is supposedly, even though it's going to be like 20 years later, they are apparently working on a sequel to this film that might come out next year. Now, as a quick heads up for anyone who watches my version of Creature Madness, I'm about to give some spoilers, or at least potential spoilers, as this is the part where I go more in depth on the creature in the creature feature film that I watched. So, in this film, we do have carnivorous, bloodthirsty sheep, and just like xenomorphs, there does seem to be different stages. First off, we have these genetically mutated fetal sheep, like this thing up here, which, ooh, only a mother could love. This thing apparently has the ability that with his bite, it can pass on the genetically modified virus of sorts that it has within it. And if it bites a sheep, the sheep then becomes this feral zombified creature that is now out for human flesh. And if it bites a human, they apparently become a were-sheep. Now, the were-sheep do seem to have superior strength, and there is eventually a chemical made in the movie that can change these were-sheep back into human beings. It's also alluded to but not shown that if the chemical were to be used on these feral sheep, that potentially they would go back to being regular sheep as well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Creature Madness all about black sheep. Excuse me. And if you've already seen this film, let me know what you thought about it in the comments. And if you'd like to see what everyone else did for their review on this film, just look up the hashtag Creature Madness.